have a really fun project for you today, and we're going to go through it step by step, and we're going to talk about so many different things, options, and supplies that you're going to need, and more important information. We're going to sew a zipper bag that is all done on your embroidery machine, completely lined with no raw edges and all professional looking. Hi, I'm Dawn from Creative Appliques. Welcome to my channel. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here with me today. And if you're new, I would like you to click that like button and the bell to be notified when I upload new content. And also that subscribe button, because that way you will know when I upload new videos. I love making these videos for you and connecting with you and sharing some tips and tricks and ideas. And so I'm really grateful that you're here. Also, if you like my video, that way I know you love my content, and I'll continue making more for you. So if you want to learn all about how to make my in the hoop zipper bag, stay tuned because I have some great info for you today. Let's go. So for starters, I want to cover a few points about stabilizer and zippers and what to put inside the bag. So for stabilizer, you definitely want to have a cutaway stabilizer. There are two options you can use. You can use a medium cutaway, about 1.5 ounce. I prefer this for the smaller bags because it does help give it some extra structure to the bag itself. You can also use a poly mesh like this. I really like using this on the larger bags, but it is obviously your preference. You can use either one that works for you. But if you use a tearaway inside the bag, it's going to get crunchy and it's going to make noise and it's going to lose its shape and structure over time. Also, if you wash the bag, then it may also lose its structure. So that's just a little bit about stabilizer, definitely your preference, but I've used both at different times and I'm happy with both of them. This file is going to be for a 3-inch zipper. However, I also have one for 5-inch zippers as well. They are not interchangeable. You cannot use a 3-inch zipper or a 5-inch zipper interchangeably in the designs, and this is why. So here on the left-hand side, I have a 3-inch zipper that I stitched out, and on the right, I have a 5-inch zipper. So the difference with the 3-inch zipper and a 5-inch zipper, the 3-inch zipper is 1 inch wide and a 5-inch zipper is 1.25 inches wide. So you think that may not be a big deal. However, the difference is the teeth, the millimeter of the teeth. And so you can see here on the left, the teeth are much smaller than the one on the right. Therefore, if you can see where the stitching is and where the zipper is showing, on the right here, you can see how wide this space is between where the tack down of the fabric is and the stitching, and it's much narrower here. So if you tried to put a number 5-inch zipper in a number 3 design, it's going to present some problems and you could potentially be stitching over the teeth. Another very important point is when you're choosing zippers, you need to get zippers that have nylon teeth. Do not use any metal teeth because at points in this design, you will be stitching over the zipper and you want to make sure you have nylon zippers. So be aware of what design you did purchase, if it's a 3-inch number, if it says number 3 in the title or if it says number 5 in the title, and then you'll know what size zipper to purchase. Now a little bit about what to put inside the bag. So for the smaller bags, I like to use batting. This is just basic batting that is used for the insides of quilts. It gives it a little structure, it gives it a little oomph, and when you do the quilting, you will see that it gives it some texture to the bag by having the batting in there. So obviously the thicker the batting you have, the more structure you're going to have and the more texture you're going to see on the outside. With the larger bags, even 6x10, 7x12 on up, I like to use a sew-in foam, bag making foam. This is a Sew Any Shape foam by Designs and Machine Embroidery by OESD, and I really love how this adds extra structure and it adds extra oomph to the bag, and it really helps it hold up and hold its structure. So for the smaller bags, as I mentioned, I like to use just batting because they don't need a lot of extra structure, a lot of help to hold up. But in the larger bags, I like to use a foam like this to help keep it structured. So now let's talk about the supplies that you're going to need for stitching the bag. So we talked about cutaway stabilizer. We need a zipper, whether it's a number 3 or number 5, depending on the design you're stitching. You're going to need 2 fabrics, and here I have prepped my fabrics already. So you will receive a PDF inside the main folder that gives you step-by-step detailed photos, instructions, along with all the measurements for the bags. So this set comes with, this is the rectangular bag size. And this set comes with 7 different sizes to fit the 5x7 hoop, the 6x10 hoop, the 7x12 hoop, the 8x12 hoop, the 9.5 by 14 inch hoop, the 10.5 by 16 inch hoop, and the 11.4 by 18 inch hoop. So that's 7 different sizes. It also includes, each of those sizes also includes 5 different quilting designs per bag. So you will receive a blank one, you will receive a diamond quilting pattern, you will receive lines, square, and stipple. So that's a lot of bags. So it's a total of 35 different files that you will receive with this bag. So back to the supplies that we need. So we need the cutaway stabilizer, we need the nylon zipper, we need the front and the lining. So today I'm going to be using this as the outside, the exterior of my bag, and then this is going to be the interior of my bag. I've labeled all the bags, I've labeled all the pieces. The instructions do tell you how to label the pieces, and this is important to know when you're placing what piece during what part of the design. Optional is some iron-on adhesive for the end when you want to close up the seam. So I either use Steam a Seam or Heat and Bond. I really prefer the 1/2 inch. It gives it extra glue and adhesive in there. Some medical tape. I love using Transpore medical tape because it tears very easily and it comes off very clean. It doesn't leave any kind of gummy residue and it's really easy to get out. You're also going to want some scissors. You are going to want to have a point and turner. You may also want to have a seam ripper as well to help potentially get the zipper out, the stabilizer away from the back of the zipper when you are removing that stabilizer at that point, but we'll talk about that when we get there. You may want to have some pins and a 90 by 14 needle. You also, if you want to stitch the quilting in a contrasting color to the fabric you're stitching on, then you may need an additional color. A lot of times with this design, I will stitch it all in one color. I will load the one color to my machine and I will stitch the entire bag in that one color without ever changing the thread. The machine will simply stop between each step and I will do each placing of fabric or batting or the zipper, what I need at that point, and I will just keep stitching. So I also only use one bobbin and I don't change the bobbin out because none of this is going to be seen from the exterior. One other word about fabric, you can also, if you want, use some SF101 on the back side of the fabric, iron it on to give it some more structure as well. I prefer to use the batting or the foam, the bag making foam inside the bag for structure because I'm usually only using the cotton quilting fabric in this design, so I don't really need to use the SF101, but if you want to have extra stability and structure, you can also use that as well. All right, so let's get to stitching the design. I hooped my cutaway stabilizer. The first step that's going to stitch is going to be the placement stitching for the perimeter of the bag and also the placement line for the zipper. So most of the time when I'm stitching, I will match the thread to the fabric that I'm using. However, today for this demonstration, so it's easier for you all to see, I am stitching in black thread so it shows up better. So I hope you're able to see it better. So now you can see it stitched the perimeter of the bag, and this is the placement line for the zipper. So because it is a number 3 zipper, it's only 1 inch wide. If it was a number 5 or a 4.5 zipper, it would be 1.25 inches. So this is a way to tell if the design that you loaded is the correct one that you're stitching by simply placing your zipper in between those 2 vertical lines there. So one note I want to make about orientation of the design. Because this is a rectangle design bag, the top of the bag is here and the bottom of the bag is here. So these are the sides. So in order for it to fit in this hoop, it needs to be rotated. And the way the bags are rotated, the design is rotated, is 90 degrees clockwise. So this will be the top of the bag, and then this will be the bottom. That will be important coming up in the next step when we're placing fabric for fabric orientation. So now I'm going to place the zipper down, and I'm using the transport tape that rips really easily. Now you want to make sure that the metal parts for the zipper are outside of these horizontal stitched lines here. So you can see I have this metal part of the zipper, and it is extending beyond past the stitched line here. You can place the zipper down either with the end on either up here, or you can stitch it down here. It doesn't matter. The way this is digitized, it's not going to stitch over this part when it tacks the zipper down. So you can place the zipper either with the pull here or down here. That's your choice. So you may also want to place a piece of tape across here as well to help hold the zipper in place if your machine gets moving along. One thing I want to note, if you have the ability on your machine to raise the presser foot up, that would be helpful. With my machine, the normal regular height of the embroidery foot is 0.06. I typically raise it up a little bit, maybe to 0.1 or maybe 0.12, but I do that a little later when I have more layers of fabric on the bag. If you do it too early, you could get in trouble with thread breaking, needle breaking, thread nesting happening with your design. So for right now, because I'm only stitching down the zipper, I will leave it lower at 0.06. One thing to note is you want to also slow your machine down. This is not about speed, and especially if you're new to this and you're just starting out, slow your machine down and sit with it. This is not something to stick on the machine and walk away from it, because there's lots of fabric and moving pieces and bits. So now I'm going to tack down the zipper, and then we'll come back. One other optional product you can use as well is called this Wash Away Wonder Tape. And it's very helpful for placing on the back side of your zipper to be able to get the zipper to stay exactly where you are going to place it. So you can put one on either side, or you could just use one strip. And then when you take the zipper and place it down between the stitched lines, this is going to hold it in place. I would also tape it though on either end. especially taping the zipper pull out of the way and making sure all metal is passed outside of the placement box. So now I'm going to go tack down the zipper. Okay, we have tacked down the zipper. Now I want to bring your attention to these 2 points right here. These are placement lines to show you where to line up your fabric. So if you have a fabric that you have fussy cut or needs to be lined up exactly in the center of the item here, of the bag stitching, then these lines here are going to show you exactly where the center line placement is for your fabric. So for example, if you were using a damask like this and you wanted to make sure that this part of the design was in center lined, then you would take your fabric and you would see this center line here and you would make sure it's lined up with that line. And that way you know exactly where the center is for your bag, for your fabric. Okay, so now we are going to take the pieces that we've already cut and begin to place them. So I'm going to remove the tape for this side, but I'm going to leave the tape on the zipper pull to make sure it stays out of the way. So this is the top and this is the bottom of the bag. When we turn the hoop to the back side of the hoop, I do it so that it is like I am closing or opening a book. So I will turn it over to the right. This matters because in the directions it is written to talk about what edge of the zipper we are going to be placing the fabric. So for this fabric, this is our lining, but it is still directional, okay? So we want to make sure that since this is the top of the bag, we want to make sure that when we place it down and it gets stitched, when we go ahead and flip it, because this is a stitch and flip bag essentially, when we flip the fabric, it's going to be in the correct orientation. So because this is the top of the bag here and this is the lining that we're placing here, piece A, we're going to take it and we're going to flip it over. So it's essentially going to be sewn upside down. You can see you have the alignment marks here in case you need them for placing the fabric correctly, because you may have lining that also has some kind of direction on it as well. So tape it down well. All right, so this is the back side of the hoop, and we take piece A and we take one long edge and we line it up to the left side of the zipper stitching. Now we're going to flip it over to the right side of the hoop, and we are going to take piece B, and again, this is the top of the bag here. So we have it directional. This is the top. We want to make sure our fabric is going to be in the correct direction. So we place it like this, and then we'll flip it over so that we know exactly where it's going to be placed. And again, we will tape it down. In these bags, tape is your friend. You want to make sure you have the bag fabric tacked down, held down really well, so when it starts stitching, it's going to be in the place you need it. Now we're going to take piece C here. Piece C has no right or wrong side, so it doesn't matter. So now we are going to take piece C and we're going to overlap it. We're going to place it over on the right side, overlapping about 1/4 of an inch on top of piece C fabric. And this is so that it gets caught in the stitching. So I want you to see here, it is overlapping. That's more like 1/2 inch. If you overlap it too much of the fabric, you can just trim it later. It's not a problem, but you want to make sure it is overlapping the fabric so it does get caught in the stitching. The next thing to stitch, step number 3, is going to be the tack down for the fabric and the lining and the batting to both the zipper and a tack down of the batting. So we have tacked down all three pieces, the back piece of the lining, the front of the fabric, and the batting. So at this point, this is optional, but for me, I like to do this because it will remove the bulk of the batting or the foam, depending on what you're using, from the seam and the final seam. I just feel it makes a much nicer, crisper, cleaner bag. Now, if you didn't overlap as much, you may not have a whole lot here to cut, so don't worry about it if you don't need to cut any. You can also leave this here if you want. Right now I won't because I already started cutting it, but you can leave it if you want and then have a little bit of a loft there next to the zipper. I prefer to have it trimmed. Just be careful when you're trimming this that you're not cutting the fabric underneath it. So again, it's an optional step. You don't have to do that, but I like to do it because it gets that bulk out of the final seam. So now I do like to give it a little press. So we are only opening up the top piece here, the top front piece. So this is piece B. And I like to give it a nice press because then that way it's going to have a nice smooth finish here. All right, now I'm going to again tape this down. The next thing that's going to stitch is going to be the tack down for this piece along with the quilting. So I will go stitch that now. We have not unfolded this yet or folded this over. We are leaving the lining as it is right now. We are just dealing with the front piece because we are going to do the tack down for it and also the quilting. So this stitched the quilting, as I mentioned earlier, there are 4 different quiltings and then one is blank. So now if you wanted to put a name or a design up here on this part of the bag, this is when you would stitch it. You would stitch it right now before you turn the lining over. So now I'm going to take the tape off of here on all the sides, all the parts, I should say. And I'm going to fold it over. Again, I'm going to give it a nice press. Now be careful if you are going to press that you're not pushing down too hard on the stabilizer because you don't want to move the stabilizer from within the frame, within the hoop. So I'm just giving it a gentle little press there so that it does not dislodge the stabilizer. And again, I'm going to tape it down. And now the next step to stitch is going to be the tack down for this lining piece. Now that the back lining piece has been tacked down, the next step to stitch is going to be just a decorative stitch across the top here to make it look all nice and uniform. So you can see it made a really nice triple bean there to make it look like it's really fancy and decorative. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do, again, we're going to turn it over. This is all fine. We've tacked down this lining. You can leave the tape there if you wish, or you can remove it. It's up to you. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to take piece D, which is our lining for the bottom part of the bag here. And remember now, we have our directional fabric. And again, this is the top of the bag. This is the bottom of the bag. And we have our directional fabric here. So we're going to turn it over and line it up to the right edge of the zipper. I'm going to tape it down. I also, when I turn the bag over, because this is a little bit of a longer piece here, I do like to take it and get just one pin. You don't really need more than that, and just kind of pin it right there to the stabilizer to help secure it and keep it out of the way. The next piece is piece E, and again, using our directional fabric, flip it over and place it. Again, you have that alignment mark here, that centering mark, if you want to center your fabric on that mark. And I'm going to tape it down. You can also, if you want to, pin this to the stabilizer as well. I'm not so worried about it. All right, and now I have piece F, and again, we're going to take piece F and we're going to overlap this long edge here, the right long edge. We're going to overlap it about 1/4 inch on top of piece E. So overlapping the batting on top of, overlapping the stitching, not the stitching, the raw edge of piece E, just like so. And you can tape it down. And now I'm going to go back to the machine and we are going to tack down these pieces. So we have tacked down the front fabric, the back lining, and the stabilizer here. Now I want to show you how close that is. And it honestly doesn't matter. If you didn't overlap it enough on the fabric to get it caught in here, that's not a problem because it's going to end up getting tacked down when we do this decorative top stitching down here, and also when we do the batting. So if it doesn't get caught here, that's not a problem. Just make sure that you watch your presser foot. Another note is, now if you have the opportunity and you have a machine that can raise the presser foot, now might be a good time to do that as we get more layers going on in here. So again, this step now is optional. You don't have to trim if you don't want to. I like to because it removes all that bulk from inside the seams. Just be careful you're not going to cut this over here when you come up the side. So now we have that all trimmed really quickly. Again, we're going to fold down our top fabric here and give it a press. This just makes it a more finished look, a more professional looking bag when you have it nice and pressed and flattened out. Okay, so now I am going to again tape it down on the sides here. I'm going to go back to the machine. The next thing to stitch is going to be the tack down for the top here and the quilting if you're doing quilting. Again, remember, we did not unfold this yet or fold this over yet because we're going to just do the quilting and the tack down for the top right now. So we have tacked down the top and we have done the quilting stitching as well. If you're adding a name or a design to the front of the bag here, now is the step to do that. So you would want to load that to your machine right now and do that step. So if I'm going to go on with the bag itself, so I'm going to turn it over. Actually, I'm going to remove the pin, turn it over, remove the tape, and again, we're going to fold the lining and give it a nice little press. So now when I'm doing this on the machine, I love this little iron here because I can kind of get it right into where I need it to be. And sometimes I don't even have to remove the hoop so much from the machine. All right, so now we are going to tape this down. So you can see how lovely that top stitching is right there. Okay, so now the next step is we are going to take piece G and we are going to place it right side down. So now remember, this is the top of the bag, and so we want to make sure we have the fabric in the correct orientation because this is going to be the outside back of the bag. So we'll place it like this and just flip it over. We want to make sure that it is centered between all of the stitching. There will be no stitching outside of the rectangle that's already here, the box that's already here. So place it where it's centered for you. Also, if you're using directional fabric or fabric that needs to be centered, you can use the markings on the hoop here. This is going to be the center line for your fabric, so you can see where you can place the fabric there. Now we're going to take piece H and place it on top of the piece G. And now we're going to go to the machine, and this is going to stitch a line right here. That stitched a line right here. Now for the final piece, we're going to take the hoop and we're going to turn it over. Again, we have piece J, and this is the inside back lining. So we want to make sure we have the directions correct. This is the top. We have the centering mark here and a mark here if you need to center it, and flip it over so that they're all in the same direction. Now this one you are going to want to tape down well. I like to tape it in the corners. That way if there's going to be movement going on. And if you have not raised your presser foot, now may be a good time because this is a lot of layers to get through. We have 1, 2, the stabilizer, the front, the batting. So we've got at least 5 things we're trying to get through to make sure that we don't have a lot of movement. So as you can see, ooh, very important. I almost forgot, and this would have been really bad. Open your zipper. Open your zipper. Should have done that before. So after you do the tack down here, that's when you need to open the zipper. I like to open it like 3/4 of the way. It helps to turn it easier when I come around the next, when we turn it right side out. And instead of the zipper pull being this way, I like to tape it this way. I still tape it down just so it doesn't get crazy and go wild. So flatten this down here. On the back, we have our piece all taped down, and now we're going to go stitch 3/4 of the way around, and that's the final stitching. So the stitching is finished. The design does have one more step, and that is on purpose to put there because some of the machines, when they're finished stitching, will go to the center of a design and they will do a needle down and a needle up. If you're stitching something like a cork or a leather or a vinyl, that will leave a hole in the center of your bag. So we don't want that to happen. So we do not go and stitch step number 14. Also, some machines, if they come back to the center, it may get in the way of your zipper foot and cause all kind of problems. So stitch number 14 is there on purpose, but is not supposed to be stitched. Okay, so now what I like to do is I like to trim the batting as close to the stitching as I can. So it helps me, and it's easier if I just leave it in the hoop here and trim it just while I have the support of the hoop. Because again, this I'm trimming as close to the stitching as I can. Obviously you want to be careful not to cut the stitching, but at this point it's so secure and there are at least 4 stitches there in each spot. So I don't think you're gonna have problems with it, but just be careful. You can also do this outside the hoop, but I like to do it inside the hoop like this because, as I mentioned, I have the support from the hoop. So now you can remove your tape from all the places. And you can unhoop it. Just pop it out. Most gratifying part of the design when it's complete. All right, so we want to turn this over now and look at the lining. So the lining here has a spot where it did not stitch through, and this is on purpose. This is where we're going to turn the bag. So I like to trim in at an angle. So if you can see, right here is the stitching. It's kind of hard to see, but I like to trim in at an angle. And again, not trimming the stitching, just right up to it. And this one is easier to see because it's got the knots. Trim up like that. These we are going to leave at this length. So we want to keep both pieces aligning. You can trim everything else away from back here, but leave the lining. So what I like to do is I like to take the two pieces and hold them with my one hand or against the table. And I will take these other pieces and I will trim them away. So now for the rest of the bag, you can trim about a good 1/4 of an inch away. 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. One note about the zipper, I like to leave it a little bit longer. I leave about an inch of the zipper just because that gets a lot of tugging and pulling and a lot of stress on that part. So I like to leave the zipper longer. Also, if you ended up putting in a tab, a hardware tab, I leave the hardware tab longer too. Because a lot of times there's going to be a key ring on that, or if it's a wristlet, it may be hanging from a wrist at that spot. And so it ends up being a lot of stress on those parts. So this part is messy. Oh, I also wanted to mention when you put the zipper on, it doesn't matter if the zipper is at the top of the hoop or at the bottom of the hoop. That doesn't matter. It's your preference on how you want the zipper to sit. If you want the zipper to be on the left side of your bag or the right side of your bag. The way the design is digitized, you can have it on either end. And I like to clip across the corners because it helps them to sit and be seated a little better. Poke out better. All right, so there's all that. Now I'm going to take my real scissors and trim off the metal bits of the zipper. This one, I'm going to leave that one in there. Okay. So now we are going to turn the bag. So there's all sorts of turners that are available. I would not use something that's super sharp though, because you don't want to poke through the ends of the corners of the bag. So now we have, this is the part that we left here. And I honestly like to get my thumb and my finger, and I can feel the two of them together, my thumb in there, and I turn it right side out and just keep going all the way around. So I get my finger in on the corner and my thumb is in on the corner, and I push it out for all of them. I will do that. And then I will get the point turner and really get it in there. But for me, for some reason, just feeling that corner with both my thumb and my finger allows me to really get a nice push out. So you can see this turner here has a really small point and a larger point. I would use the larger point because the smaller point sometimes can go through fabric. And if you have a thinner fabric, it could kind of get in there and get it, it could kind of make a mess. The other one, you can use something like this to get into the corners as well. to push them out and push the seams out. It's your preference on what you prefer, obviously, what works best for you. Now I like to give it all a nice press. So I kind of roll it out, get the seams between my fingers here, roll it out. Don't worry about ironing over the zipper. You can iron over the zipper. So I like my bags to be nice and crisp. So I tend to iron them a lot and then iron it from the back. That helps to flatten out the parts of the batting and the stabilizer and stuff. So now we have our two pieces here, two wings almost. And you get some Steam-A-Seam or iron-on adhesive. And I just take it and I measure it just like that. And I tear it. And I fold them in first. Make sure the points are in. Get them in there really nicely. And give them a good press as well. And so for me, it's a little easier to get the Steam-A-Seam or heat and bond whatever you're using in this part. I like to get it just on the plain piece of lining that that's not stitched down here. It makes it a little smoother and easier for me to try to attach it to the other side. Whereas I'm trying on this side, I'm fighting a lot with multiple pieces of batting and fabric and stuff. So doing it this way, it allows me to get a nice attachment like that. And again, I iron it from both sides. So now that is pretty much sealed closed. I mean, it'll take a little bit too, when it dries, it'll be better. But you can also hand stitch it, but I don't like stitching by hand, so I leave it. Now, if you have any little thread tails or, areas that might have not gotten trimmed, this is the time where you can trim off any little pieces of thread that may be there. And again, getting my fingers into those corners and really pushing them out, turning it right side out, closing the zipper, and now actually poking out the corners once again. So there we go. How fast and easy that is. The stitch out is probably less than 10 minutes or 15 minutes to stitch out a completely professional looking in the hoop embroidery bag. So here's some other samples that I've also done I put a tab on this one, and this one I did in Cuddle, which is super fun. Did this one in Cuddle and added the double collegiate font on this one. So, well, what do you think? Isn't it so fun to make these bags? They come together so quickly. I think it takes longer to cut the fabric than it actually takes to stitch the design. I just love making these bags. They're perfect for gifts. You can use it as a gift wrapper. You can put another gift inside of here. You can give something like this to a teacher. a nurse, anyone who has any kind of holiday or event that you want to share and give a gift with. And you can make it so personalized too, just by changing up the type of fabric that you're using. So I sure appreciate you being here with me today. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and also click that like button. That's the only way YouTube knows that you're liking my content, and it allows other people to also see my content as well. It helps with the algorithms. It's a whole thing. I don't want you to worry about it. Just click the like and click the subscribe. So leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think of these bags. Again, it comes with 4 different quilting options and a blank one in 7 different sizes. And I will also have them available for the number 5 zippers, and we'll do squares, and we'll do so many more, so much more fun stuff. I love it. So anyway, guys, until I see you next time, please remember, make your life creative. Bye for now.